Chapter 10, Job 8, New King James Version. Then Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, How long will you speak these things, and the words of your mouth be like a strong wind? Does God subvert judgment, or does the Almighty pervert justice? If your sons have sinned against him, he has cast them away for their transgression. If you would earnestly seek God and make your supplication to the Almighty, if you were pure and upright, surely now he would awake for you and prosper your rightful dwelling place. Though your beginning was small, yet your latter end would increase abundantly. For inquire, please, of the former age, and consider the things discovered by their fathers. For we were born yesterday and know nothing, because our days on earth are a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words from their heart? Can the papyrus grow up without a marsh? Can the reeds flourish without water? While it is yet green and not cut down, it withers before any other plant. So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hope of the hypocrite shall perish, whose confidence shall be cut off, and whose trust is a spider's web. He leans on his house, but it does not stand. He holds it fast, but it does not endure. He grows green in the sun, and his branches spread out in his garden. His roots wrap around the rock heap, and look for a place in the stones. If he is destroyed from his place, then it will deny him, saying, I have not seen you. Behold, this is the joy of his way, and out of the earth others will grow. Behold, God will not cast away the blameless, nor will he uphold the evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughing, and your lips with rejoicing. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the dwelling place of the wicked will come to nothing. Eliphaz came with a night vision and a cousin's grief, and 7 days of earned silence before he spoke. He brought weight. He brought relationship. He brought the authority of a man who had sat in the ashes long enough to know what the ashes smelled like. Bildad the Shuhite brings none of that. Bildad brings a library. He opens not with sympathy, but with impatience. How long will you speak these things, and the words of your mouth be like a strong wind? He is telling Job, before he has said a single substantive thing, that the problem is Job's mouth. That the volume and the rawness of what Job has been saying is itself evidence of something wrong. This is the oldest silencing technique in human conversation. Dismiss the form of the complaint in order to avoid engaging the content of it. Job's words have been like wind, Bildad says, strong wind. Impressive perhaps, but moving nothing, building nothing, arriving from somewhere and going nowhere. It is a diagnosis dressed as a question, and it is delivered in the first 2 lines before Bildad has even cleared his throat. Then he asks the questions that sound like theology, but function as verdict. Does God subvert judgment? Does the Almighty pervert justice? The expected answer is no, of course not. God is perfectly just, and Bildad knows Job will agree, because Job has said as much himself. It is a rhetorical trap built from shared belief. If God is perfectly just and Job is suffering, then the suffering is just. And if the suffering is just, then Job deserved it. And if Job deserved it, then somewhere beneath all that integrity, there is a sin that explains the ash heap. The logic is airtight. The premise is true. The conclusion is wrong. Because the argument only works in a universe where God's justice operates exclusively through immediate visible consequence. And the book of Job exists precisely to demonstrate that it does not. And then Bildad says the most brutal thing anyone has said to Job yet, and he says it with the smooth confidence of a man who believes he is being helpful. He looks at the 10 dead children, the sons and daughters who died when the house collapsed during the feast, and he says, if your sons sinned against God, he cast them away for their transgression. There it is. The children are dead because the children were guilty. Their deaths were their sentence. The collapsed house was divine judgment on the people inside it. Bildad does not flinch. He does not lower his voice. He delivers this conclusion as a piece of received wisdom, as though the grief of a father sitting in ashes should simply receive it and move on. It is possibly the least compassionate sentence in the entire book, and it is offered by a man who came to comfort. He pivots immediately to what Job should do, which is the move of a man who is more comfortable with solutions than with suffering. Seek God earnestly, Bildad says. Make supplication. Be pure and upright. If you do these things, God will awake for you and prosper your rightful dwelling place. And your latter end will increase abundantly. The language is hopeful. The promises are real ones. They belong to the covenant. They appear in the Psalms. They are not invented, but they are conditioned here on Job first doing the thing Bildad needs him to do, which is admit that he has not been doing them. The structure of the advice is confess, repent, seek God, and then all of this will be restored, which is exactly the structure Eliphaz proposed, which means the three friends coming from three different directions are carrying the same map, and the map has the same flaw. It assumes a destination, Job's guilt, and draws the roads accordingly. Bildad then appeals to the fathers. Consult the former age, he says. We were born yesterday, and our days are a shadow, but the ancients knew things that the freshly born cannot. This is not an unreasonable instinct. Tradition carries weight. The accumulated testimony of generations is not nothing. But Bildad is using the appeal to tradition the way a lawyer uses a precedent, not to discover truth, but to support a conclusion already reached. The tradition he is about to cite will say exactly what he needs it to say because he has chosen it for that purpose. The fathers he consults all confirm what Bildad already believes. This is the oldest academic sleight of hand, the illusion of research in the service of confirmation. The nature images he reaches for are genuinely beautiful and genuinely wrong in their application. Can papyrus grow without a marsh? Can reeds flourish without water? No. And so the man who forgets God withers before he is cut, still green, still apparently alive, but already dying at the root because the source has been severed. The hypocrite's confidence is a spider's web, intricate, impressive in its construction, capable of catching things, but destroyed by a single finger passing through it. The wicked man wraps his roots around the rock heap and spreads his branches in the garden and looks established, looks permanent, looks like a tree that belongs there, and then he is removed, and the place where he stood says, I have not seen you. I do not know you. You were never here. Every image is perfect. Every image is aimed at the wrong man. Because the man these images are designed to describe, the hypocrite, the one who forgets God, the one whose confidence is a web, the one whose roots have no real purchase, is not Job. God has already said so. God said it before the adversary asked for access, and before the hedge came down, and before the first messenger arrived running. And Bildad, who appeals to tradition and the wisdom of the fathers, has skipped the most important testimony in the case, the one given in the heavenly courtroom by the one who created both Job and Bildad and knows the difference between them better than any library of ancient wisdom. The final verses carry the deepest paradox of the speech. Bildad ends with what sounds like grace. God will not cast away the blameless, he says. He will yet fill your mouth with laughing and your lips with rejoicing. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the dwelling of the wicked will come to nothing. These are real promises. They will come true. Every single one of them will be fulfilled before the book ends. The laughter, the rejoicing, the shame of the accusers, the restoration of the dwelling. Bildad is, like Eliphaz before him, describing Job's actual future with remarkable accuracy, while being completely wrong about the present and the path that leads there. The friends keep doing this, speaking true destinations while drawing false roads. They are prophets who have the end right and the middle catastrophically wrong. And this is perhaps the most clarifying thing the book of Job teaches about the difference between wisdom and revelation. Wisdom observes patterns. It studies the former age. It compiles the testimony of the fathers and extracts principles and applies them consistently. It is not worthless. It is genuinely useful in most circumstances, but it was not built to handle the exceptional case, the man about whom heaven has made a specific declaration that overrides the general principle. General wisdom says this much suffering means this much sin. Specific revelation says there is none like him on the earth. Bildad has wisdom. Job has revelation. He does not know he has it. He has not heard what was said about him in the courts of heaven. But somewhere inside him, beneath the night terrors and the cracking skin and the dried up brooks of friendship, there is something that will not accept the verdict the friends keep handing him. Not pride, not stubbornness. Something older than either of those. Something that was planted in him before the ash heap, before the hedge came down, before the adversary ever asked the question that started all of this. Something that knows the difference between a man being corrected and a man being tested, even when every visible thing insists there is no difference at all. Bildad calls that thing strong wind. God will eventually call it speaking what is right.